Hi, it's Mary Kaufusi, and I am here doing Conversations with Kaufusi. And I first want to thank everyone for joining us, and second, want to introduce one of our newer employees, our Economic Development Director, Keith Morey, and he is
Hello.
new to the city, and we're so thrilled to have him. So, first, I also want to point out that we are trying to show how to social distance and yet still be able to carry on a conversation that's educational and will hopefully help the citizens of Provo. So, Keith, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. My name is Keith Morey. I've been in Utah since about 1986 and went to Brigham Young University and graduated and got a master's degree in public administration. I've been working for local government here in Utah since '92, so it's been for quite a while, and I've got a long history of working with local governments from Payson all the way up to Ogden. So it's a pleasure to be here. I have a great loyalty to Provo. I graduated from BYU, and I have 5 kids that graduated from BYU, and some of them are still there. And so I love Provo, have always loved Provo, and was thrilled with the opportunity to be able to come back and work with you guys because I think we've got a lot of great things happening here.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
there is.
prior to the camera coming on, I think we could have talked for another
I know,
hour
right?
about things we've got to get done. And anyways, because we really want to help the economy of Provo and do
Yeah.
what's best. So my first question, because we're talking, our focus is on, and this is just so point specific for you, it's really hitting home in your department and what you do, this COVID-19 and the impact.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how it's impacted the businesses and the community in Provo
Okay.
from your view.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I started in January, and it's kind of interesting to start a job that you think you understand and then have your job description change overnight, because that's really kind of what happened to me. I mean, economic development is usually about business recruiting and expansion and retention, and pretty much overnight, all of our focus has changed to business retention and survival. How do we do that? And so it's been very, very interesting and very dynamic. There's just a lot going on. And we have tried to find ways to be really innovative and creative about how we either create connections with businesses that we don't have, or reestablish connections, or build up connections that we have to find out what business needs are, what resources are available, and how we can participate. I mean, I've always advocated for business. I think part of my interest in local government has been, I think, a good sign of a healthy community is when you have businesses that are surviving and expanding and are interested in locating in your community, because that gives our residents opportunities to live and work and play and entertain. And so I've always advocated for that, and this is it's a difficult time for all of us, and in some ways it's kind of heartbreaking, and I'm very, very invested in trying to find ways that we can prop up businesses that are struggling and maybe provide safety tools for them or survival tools to them to help them make it through this.
Yeah, who would have ever thought a pandemic?
Yeah.
I mean, of all the things that could have come our way,
Yeah.
pandemic, just the word alone is crazy to even
Yeah,
say that.
it really is. It really is.
So, okay, we just released, and thanks to you and your hard work, you actually just released our COVID-19 Economic Development webpage to provide information on the service and resources for businesses. So tell us about what businesses can find online and how that can help them.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, again, in our effort to try to figure out how do we communicate, a couple of weeks ago we decided that we ought to launch a sub-page on the city's economic development site. So if you go to Provo City's government page and you find the Economic Development Department, at the very top of that page, on our economic development page, is a sub-page for COVID-19. And we are just trying to make that an archive for all the information that we see. I mean, from my perspective, some of this is really interesting because you're seeing collaboration and innovation with some parties that normally compete with each other, with cities that compete. I mean, I've had some great conversations with Salt Lake City, who I think has been really out in front on this, and they just flat said, we want to share everything. We don't want to own any of this stuff, so if there's anything that we can do to share, and I'm finding that from the federal government to the state government to local jurisdictions wanting to partner. So on that site, we have a lot of that information about what we're seeing for what businesses can do to apply for small business loans. Just today, we updated the page. SBA has put together a paycheck protection plan. And so small businesses can apply for those funds and get paycheck assistance. if they're willing to keep employees employed for, I think it's 8 weeks or something like that. So there are a lot of resources like that. Yesterday in a meeting that the state's Economic Development Emergency Task Force team, hosted by Derek Miller, put on, they've partnered with the University of Utah to provide an online forum every Friday that is free, that will provide some incredible education for businesses on how to navigate through this and what it looks like and what some very influential business leaders in our state community are doing and what their thoughts are about how to survive. So anyway, that's a long way of saying hopefully we're trying to capture as much of that as we see and archive that in a way that people can access it. And we'd really appreciate feedback from people on, is it helpful, is it structured well, did we miss something, so we can make that as robust as possible.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, so our website is provo.org, and I'm thinking we probably need to put that, you know how we have the COVID-19 update plan, but we also probably should have a bar for
right
the
that.
COVID-19 Economic Development Update Plan as well, because just like our city safety plan, we're changing it every day. Anytime we hear something new, we go in and change it, and that's how you are with yours, because everything's changing every day.
Which is exciting. I mean, you and I talked before about this. It's a very difficult time. It's very trying. But for me personally, there is a little bit of, I don't know if excitement is the right word, anticipation, because I think there's some great things that come out of this. Usually when we get stretched as a people or as a country, we tend to be more innovative than we are when we're comfortable. And so you're starting to see new innovations that I don't think people ever anticipated before. When you and I talked before, we talked about how sit-down restaurants that have never conceptualized how to provide takeout opportunities now all of a sudden are doing that. We have alcohol distilleries in the state that have changed their formatting and are making hand sanitizers. We have local companies that have 3D printers that are making emergency response masks for healthcare and for fire and police departments. And those kind of innovations don't happen when you're comfortable. And so I think it's a really interesting time. And I think if we can use the technology and the resources that we've been given to be creative instead of just hibernating at home and overloading on the latest news report. I mean, I think there's some really incredible things that could happen. We're very sympathetic.
And we're seeing it in our community right here. Okay, so you kind of touched on this, but given the social distancing requirements, many restaurants are relying solely on takeout and curbside pickup. What help are we providing with signage and parking to make this process as safe and helpful for all, both business owners and customers in the city?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I think it's a personal and it's a business decision that every company is facing. Do I stay open or do I close? Can we work with social distancing requirements in place? Can we work remotely? And we've struggled with that as a city. I mean, you've hosted several meetings that we've talked about that at a director and a department head level about should we stay open? And I think from our perspective as a city, we just have felt like it's very it's an important message for us to show the community that we're trying to stay available. We want to continue to be a resource. And so if you come to our offices, you'll find that you can still get service at our front counter. In the Development Services Department, you can still come and talk about projects that are happening in our community. A key component that's still going forward is the construction industry. And so we're trying to do planning commissions remotely, and we're trying to continue to review plans and do building inspections and things like that. And I think from my perspective, those are the types of things that we can do with social distancing requirements. For years and years, we've all talked about how important it is to shop local. If there was ever a time to focus on that, it's right now. And I think to the extent that we as citizens can be thinking, what can I be doing to support my local businesses through takeout, or can I order online? A lot of residents may not understand that we get a portion of online sales. So if you're buying something from Amazon or from whatever, a portion of that comes back to the community. And so we'd encourage our citizens to think very much about what they can be doing. I've seen prominent people that have the means buy 50 meal cards or whatever from a restaurant, and then give them to needy people that they know, to give them a takeout opportunity as well. And those kinds of investments make a big difference for a company that's on the border of thinking about, do I shut this down or not? That may make a big difference. And we're trying to do the same thing. We've asked all of our departments to be creative about, are there services or things that we can do in a way to try to bridge that revenue gap that companies are seeing.
Yeah, it's really happening out there. I know I sent my kids on Saturday. Actually, we ordered food from Joe Vera's, and I sent my twins down there to pick it up, and they're 23 and kind of whiny. And Mom, there's so many people out here, and we're standing far apart, and you didn't tell us we were gonna have to wait in line. And I just thought, that's music to my ears.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah.
You stand in line,
exactly.
and you keep your social distancing, and just be grateful. And they said the people at Joe Vera's were just so, thank you for doing business with us tonight, and just so grateful that people had called in and placed orders and were coming up to the curb to pick them up.
Yeah. No, I mean, from my perspective, as bad as it is, I think that it's working. I went and got gas at my gas station the other day and just asked the local guy that runs the store how things were going, and he said, it's crazy. We're busier than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, we ordered some food from a restaurant, and later on, like an hour after we got home and were eating, we saw a Facebook post that they'd shut down their menu, that they just had too many orders and they couldn't service all the orders that they had. And like you said, I mean, that's music to my ears as well, because that means our social distancing responsibilities are working, and we're still supporting our businesses, which I think is essential.
Yeah, it's so important. Okay, so I think the most important message we can get to the business owners and the citizens alike, that Provo, we're still open for business. And I know that I get a lot of emails every day from people on all sides telling me, kind of giving me advice of how to run the city and things like that, which is great and fine. And I respect every single email I get, and I try to respond within about a 24-hour period. But when it comes right down to it, and as you said in the meeting yesterday, I never make this big of a decision without talking and mulling it over with my directors, my office staff. It's a big decision if we were to shut down the businesses in Provo. And after our meeting yesterday and having all that collaboration and feedback, we are still going to support the social distancing and still keep our businesses open. But with curbside and takeout only, I went into a restaurant also, because we're trying so hard to be supportive, and all the tables and chairs were piled up and pushed to the side, and they had markers on the floor of where you were to stand. And I thought, that's brilliant.
It is.
Yeah. So anyways, people are figuring out ways to make it happen and to work. So talk about the ways in which we are still providing development services, and you kind of touched on this, such as inspections and necessary approval meetings, such as planning commission, to keep projects moving forward. And I will just say, planning commission meeting, just like all our other meetings, is still on schedule. We haven't missed a beat, and is on through Zoom. If anyone would like to get on our YouTube station, Provo Channel 17, and watch.
Well, it's fascinating. Historically, if you look at the number of people that watch a city council meeting online, that number is very, very small.
Yeah.
But thank heavens we're prepared to do that. I just read an email this morning from a smaller community in Utah that said they've been devastated, because it's not just their local businesses that have suffered, but it's their construction projects as well, because they had no ability to do remote meetings. And so all their planning commission meetings, council meetings, they've had to cancel, and any project that was on schedule had to be postponed because they can't have public hearings. So I think it's a statement about who we are as Provo government and what we're trying to accomplish, that we haven't missed a beat. I mean, I commend you for being able to accomplish that, because it allows at least us to support that part of the process that needs to continue to go forward for as long as we can. And I mean, I think, there's some people in our office that are working from home or working remotely.
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, all those plans are still being reviewed, all those inspections are still being done, all those discussions are still being had about projects. There's a number of big projects in Provo that are continuing to move forward, and you constantly hear. I had somebody come over to my office today and said, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I know we're right next to each other, but I'm participating in a meeting on my computer. If it's too loud, let me know, because we're trying to find ways to adapt and stay involved in those meetings without having to be in the same room if we don't have to. And I think it's that kind of creativity that's essential.
Yeah, it is. Well, Keith, it's just a delight. It's
thank you
so much fun to visit with you, and you play such a critical role. You are an essential employee right now.
Well, thank you.
And we need you and your wisdom on how to navigate this crazy system. So thanks so much.
You bet.
And again, just if you want to visit our website at provo.org, you'll see our COVID-19 update right there. And then also on our provo.org, if you if just our search box is wonderful. If you put economic development or economic COVID-19, you'll go right to our new page that will help the small businesses and all businesses actually.
Yeah.
We have the links from the federal government, from the state, to the local people that are stepping up and doing as well. So,
well, and I mean, maybe just in closing, if there was anything I could add, I just would say to connect with us.
Yeah.
You know, if we haven't made a connection with you yet, or if you see something that you think that we've missed, please reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah.
And the other thing as citizens, you know, let's be responsible.
Yeah.
And let's do what we can. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about at what point should the government shut things down. And I think within the state of Utah, we're trying to have this attitude of we want us to be socially responsible independently without having to be forced. And I think that's a big statement of accountability and trust. And we need to honor that and do our part to set an example and to social distance and to do what we can.
and have common sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, use your common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get through this
Yeah.
and we'll come out on the other side and have learned a lot. I'm learning every day.
Me too.
Every single day I
Me
learn more and more about how to manage people and how to manage the city, all because of this pandemic. It's really been a great learning tool for me, as crazy as that sounds.
I agree.
But anyways, we
Thank
just
you.
want to thank everyone for joining us, and again, visit our website at provo.org.